Hello viewers, today we are evaluating our factorials. That's our task for today. So we have our question number 1, which is saying evaluate the following. Evaluate the following. So we have our part 1. We have a 5 factorial. So to evaluate this, we are going to say this is equal to 5 times a 4 times a 3 times a 2 times 1. So that 5 I will be reducing by a 1. So you multiply like that. Remember, we don't use a calculator. So you say 5 times 4, that's a 20. Then 20 times a 3, we have a 60. 60 times 2, 120. Then 120 times 1, we have a 120 as our answer. Then we have our part 2, which is saying we have 20 factorial, that is over 17 factorial. This is what we have. So for this type of equation, since we have a fraction, so the first thing that you do, you look at the bigger factorial, which is a 20 factorial. So you're going to reduce this bigger factorial, which is a 20 factorial, to 17 factorial. So we're going to say 20, that is times 19 times 18 times 17 factorial times 17 factorial. Let me write a 17. So times 17 factorial over a 17 factorial there. So now this one will give us, so 17 factorial and 17 factorial cancels. We have 20 times 19 times 18 there. So now we need to multiply. So I'm going to say 20 times 19. What do we have? 9 times 0, 0. 9 times 2, 18. 0. Then 1 times 0, 0. 1 times 2, 2 there. So we have 0, 8, 3. So meaning that 20 times 19, that's 380. We're going to multiply this by 18. So I have now 380 times 18. So 18 times 0, 0. 18 times 8, that's a 64. You write a 4, you keep a 6. Then 18 times 3, that's a 24 plus 6, that would be a 30. Write a 0. Then you say 1 times 0, 0. 1 times 8, 8. Then 1 times a 3, we have a 3. So when we add here, we're going to get a 0, 4, 8, 6. So meaning that 380 times 18 of 6,840. So that's what we have there. So next we move to our part 3. So for part 3, what we have is we have 9 factorial over 6 factorial, 3 factorial. That's what we have. So for us to evaluate this, you look at the bigger factorial, which is a 9 factorial, reduce it up to the next number that is close to 9 factorial, which is a 6 factorial and not a 3. So it will be 9 times 8 times 7 times a 6 factorial over a 6 factorial times a 3 factorial. So 6 factorial and 6 factorial cancels. Then we have 9 times 8 times a 7 over 3 factorial, that's 3 times 2 times a 1. So this will give us 3 into 3, 1, 3 into 9. 3 into 9, we have a 3. Then 2 into 2, 1, 2 into 8, we have a 4. So we have here a 4. Then times a 7, that's what we have. Then now 3 times 4, that's a 12 times a 7. So this will give us 7 times 2, that's a 14. You keep a 1, you write a 4. 7 times 1, you have a 7. Then 7 plus 1, that's 8. So the answer becomes 84 there. So that's what we do. Then we have our part 5. So for part 4, what we have is 7 factorial minus 2, then open brackets, we have a 5 factorial. So for us to evaluate this one, first we are going to look at the bigger factorial, which is a 7 factorial. So you're going to reduce it up to the next smallest factorial, which is a 5 factorial. So reduce a 7 factorial up to 5 factorial. So to be 7 times a 6 times 5 factorial minus 2 open, then this is a 5 factorial. Then from here you factor out what is common, which is a 5 factorial. Then here we have a 7 times 6 minus minus a 2 there. So we have a 5 factorial open, 7 times 6, that's a 42, minus a 2 there. So now we have a 5 factorial times what? A 40 there. So 5 factorial is 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, then times 40 there. Then now from this point, now what we're going to do is we are going to multiply 5 times 4, that's a 20, 20 times 3, we have 20 times 3, we have a 60, then a 60 times 2, you have a 120 times 1, still have 120, so say 120 times a 40. So now we are multiplying 120 times 40, that's what we are doing. So 0 times 0, we have a 0, 0 times 0, 0, 0 times, 0 times 2, 0, then 0 times 1, we have a 0, you write a 0. 4 times 0, 0. 4 times 2, we have an 8, then 4 times 1, you have a 4. So this is what we have when you add it to be 0084. So 120 times 4, we have 4,000. That's 4,800. So that one becomes the answer for that part. So now we proceed to part 5. So for part 5, what we have is we have 12 factorial minus 10 factorial, that is over 9 factorial. So for us to evaluate this, what we're going to do first is we're going to change this one to a fraction. That's what we're going to do. So I'm not saying, so we are going to split this one. So you're going to say you have 12 factorial over what? 9 factorial minus, then this is 10 factorial, that is over a 9 factorial. So the main reason why we have splitted this is we know that 9 factorial is the denominator for whatever you have on top. So therefore, you can split it that way. That's what we do. So now we'll start by evaluating the first part. So we're going to reduce 12 factorial to up to 9. So it will be 12 times 11 times 10 times 9 factorial. That will be over a 9 factorial minus, we'll reduce a 10 up to 9 factorial. Then we are going to divide by 9 factorial. 9 factorial, 9 factorial cancels, 9 factorial, 9 factorial cancels. We have 12 times 11 times 10, which is minus a 10. So here we can see that 10 is common, so we factor out a 10, then we say open 12 times 11 minus a 1 there. So I have 10 times 12 times 11, so 12 times 11, 1 times 2, we have a 2, then 1 times 1, we have a 1, you write a 0, 1 times 2, 2, then 1 times 1, 1, so you have a 2, 3, 132. So here we have 132 minus 1, so we have 10 open, 132 minus 1, that's 131. So this will give us 1,300 and what? A 10. So that's what we are going to get there. Then we have our part 6. So our part 6, we have that is 1 over 4 factorial plus 1 over 5 factorial plus 1 over 6 factorial. So we are adding these factorials. So the first thing that you're going to do is you find the common denominator. So here the common denominator will be the bigger factorial, which is a 6 factorial. So now here we're going to say 4 factorial into 6 factorial, meaning that I'm trying to say 6 factorial over a 4 factorial. That's what it means. So we are going to reduce 6 up to 4 factorial. So it will be 6 times 5 times 4 factorial over a 4 factorial. That cancels. We have 6 times 5, that's a 30. 30 times 1, we have a 30 there. Again, we say 6 factorial divided by 5 factorial. This will be 6 times 5 factorial over 5 factorial, which will give us a 6 times 1, we have a 6. Then 6 factorial into 6 factorial, we have a 1 times 1, 1. So we can see that here. So now we can see that when we say 30 plus 6 plus 1, this will give us a 37. That is now over what? A 6 factorial. So now we are going to say we have 37. 6 factorial to be 6 times 5 times a 4 times a 3 times 2 times 1. So now we have 37 over 6 times 5, that's a 30. Then 30 times 4, we have a 120. Then 120 times a 3. So 0 there, 6, 3. So 3 is 10 times a 2. So 0 here, 12, we keep a 1, 6, 7, 20. So we have 37 over 720. So that one becomes our answer for that, our function there. So now we proceed to part 7 now. So that's a combination that we have. So we have 5 combine 5. You know, this can be written as 5 choose 5. It's one and the same. So for us to evaluate this, we know that n combine r, the general formula for this is it will be n, that is factorial over n minus r, then factorial, then r factorial. That's what we have. Then now we have 5 n will be 5, then r will be equal to what? 5. Then this will be 5 factorial over 5 minus 5. Then here factorial, then 5 factorial. This will be 5 factorial over 5 minus 5, that's a 0. Then factorial, 5 factorial. This will give us 5 factorial over 0 factorial, that's a 1, then times 5 factorial. So 5 factorial and 5 factorial cancels. You have 1 over 1 times 1, which is just equal to a 1. So meaning that 5 combine 5, it will give us a 1. Then we have our part 8. So for part 8, what we have is 6 combine 3. So this will be equal to 6 factorial over 6 minus 3. Then factorial, 3 factorial. This will be 6 factorial, that is over 6 minus 3. This will be 3 factorial, 3 factorial. This will give us, now we're going to reduce a 6 factorial, okay, up to 3 factorial. So it will be 6 times 5, then times 4 times 3 factorial. Then we're going to divide this by 3 factorial times 3 factorial. Then this will be equal to 6 times 5 times what? 4. So 3 factorial and 3 factorial cancels. Now we have 3 factorial, which is 3, times 2 times what? A 1. This will give us a 6, which will cancel with that. So this will give us a 20. So when we say 6 combine what? A 3, you should be able to get a 20. Then for the last part, which is part number 9, the ix, we have our 5 combined 0. So this will be equal to 5 factorial over 5 minus 0, then factorial. This is 0 factorial. This will be 5 factorial over 5 factorial, 0 factorial. which will be 5 factorial and 5 factorial cancels. On top you have a 1, that is over 0 factorial, that's a 1, so you have a 1 there as the answer. So that's how we deal with factorials.